For this project, we're going to be recreating the Gal VorBak, and to do this, it's going to use up two kits. Some parts from the Legionnaires, but mostly we will use and repurpose the new possessed kit. Now, the first logical thing to do is plan, but the only plan I've had at this point is I've got to stretch this kit to make more than the 5 models that it covers. Will we do this? We'll get more into that later. So let's get this ball rolling on the first model. To start, we are cutting out the torso and its matching counterpart. This helps with visualizing how this exact model will be sculpted or modeled. Now with this torso, I'm really enjoying the bulky and strong pose given by the chest. And with this, I want there to also be this luring mass of a weapon. But because I'd like such a strong arm attached to this torso, I'd have to consider a lacking counterpart to offset this model's pose. Luckily, the possessed kit does come with a nice subtle demon style arm which fits perfectly to the hulking nature for this model. So, using the rotary tool, I'll carve out a larger cavity for the arm to slot into and also reshape the arm so it fits together. Once the rough shape is done, I'll do a little cleanup with a knife, and then it's time to glue the pieces together. Next, for the hulking arm, there wasn't any pieces in the kit which really fit the idea that I had in mind. So we're going to have to make our own, with a little bit of help. Now, because these parts are resin, we will need to use superglue to fix the pieces together. All we are now missing is the head and the backpack. Again, these will be from the original kit, so using the most fitting pieces which would fit to this model. With that now done, it's time to move on to Model 2. Once again, we'll cut out the torso and its counterpart. But on this torso, we'll also begin to remove the claw arm and the smaller claws attached. Once that's done, we will glue the torso and the legs together. Now we are left with an almost blank canvas for this model. Because these are the reincarnated version of the Gal VorBak, the first thing I noticed with the original models is that most of them still had their bolters in hand. So, for these I want to at least capture that bolter, and these bolters will come from the Legionnaires kit. So, cutting the pieces out, a little cleaning, and we now have a good connection to glue to. As for the opposite hand, I wanted the overall model to continue its running motion, while again having a heavy mutated side, and the claw looks like a good fit. Once again, picking the appropriate head and backpack, it's now time to move on to Model 3. Now for the third model, we will use the champion's torso. Again, we will use the legs and finish building the torso. The first thing I wanted to remove was its pre-build in its arm. So, using the hobby saw, I'd get a clean cut so I could attach a new arm. As for the arm, I wanted to use the large meat cleaver style arm, and this required also using the hobby saw to get a clean cut. With the cuts now done, the arm is almost ready to be glued together. One small touch I wanted to add is the cable running into the arm. So, using some copper wire, a small hole was drilled into the arm and then into the shoulder to make them connected. With the mutant arm now done, the only arm left to do is the bolter side. Again, a single hand bolter was used from the Legionnaires kit. A small amount of clipping and filing is required to get a clean fit. Let's move on to Model 4. Now for these models, I really want to capture a more twisted side to the possessed, and for it I want to capture a marine in the middle of its transformation. So, to start, I took one side of the possessed's remaining body, and then took a leg from the Legionnaires. With the leg, I'd remove part of the joint behind the knee, and this will give it enough space to alter the pose. With the leg now ready, the lower portion would be removed from the torso and glued together to make a connection. Now, because there isn't much area for the plastic to glue onto, I used green stuff to backfill in between to give each piece enough area to grip to each other. As for the torso, I still wanted to show some parts of the original marine piece. So, using more green stuff, I'll fill in the torso. I also used some metal wire to make a brace, and this will help with the sculpting later and also in holding the two pieces together. Now, before we start working on sculpting the finer details, we'll be using green stuff and milliput into a 1-to-1 mixture. This combination will leave us with a more delicate mixture which will allow us to sculpt easier. Now this part is a slow process, so patience is needed. With the model's sculpts now dry and set, we can start to glue on the arms. Again, we will use the bolter arm, and as for the other, I want a large mutated arm luring on the model's pose. And with that done, we are on to model 5. Now for this model, we will mostly be doing the same steps as before. However, it will be on the opposite side of the pieces left over. So, glue them together, fill in any areas with green stuff, and now we have a canvas ready for the sculpting. Using the metal wire again, this will be used to simulate any bands and bones inside of the open torso. With a flattened mixture of green stuff, a thin piece is cut out and covered over the area. Now using a sculpting tool to push the green stuff into place, moulding around the metal and the waist. And once again, this step can be very fiddly, so taking things slow will help staying in control. Once this has been done, the same will need to be done for the remaining gaps, the one on the legs and on the opposite side of the torso. All that's left to do is adding the bolters and an overly mutated arm, and we are left with this. So what about the extra model? Well, I'll give you a hint. This model is actually a named character and he is on his way. But I'll give you a sneak peek at what to expect.